TheMorgile here. Sorry for starting a couple of minutes late. I was looking for the first part of section 14 that I'm certain that I live streamed yesterday, and I could find it on my phone on my YouTube channel, but not on the computer on my YouTube channel. So I found it. So we're going to pick up right where we left off with the audiobook, Confusion in the Cosmos by Miguel Stephano, Decoding the Deception. And again, we're in section 14, which was the roots of the deception. So if you can hear me loud and clear, I would appreciate a thumbs up or a comment. Just let me know. I see we've got one person in the live stream, but that's probably Mercury Streambot or whatever. I need to learn how to get rid of that. Hey, what's up, effed up world? Anybody want to manage my YouTube channel? Seriously, I just ain't got time for it. And of course, they've got paid developers whose task, it seems to be, to take all the stuff that works very nicely and very well with YouTube and then make it more complicated and less functional by, for job security, basically. 5x5. Okay, Rosie, effed up world, it's time. Appreciate it. So, Confusion in the Cosmos, section 14B, picking up where we left off, 1953, Project MK Ultra. Project MK Ultra began under CIA Director Alan Welsh Dulles on April 13th, 1953. MK Ultra was a code name used for the CIA mind control program that performed experiments on human subjects by using illegal methods and means. Using United States and Canadian citizens as unwitting subjects, numerous methods were used to manipulate people's brain function and mental states, often causing permanent injury and even death. Many illegal activities were utilized, including high doses of psychoactive drugs like LSD and mescaline, hypnosis, electroshock, sensory deprivation, verbal and sexual abuse, isolation, and other forms of torture. MK Ultra's project scope was very broad, with research being conducted at 80 different institutions, including universities, prisons, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, and secret detention camps. These institutions were often operated under the CIA, using so-called front organizations as a sort of veil. By utilizing biological, chemical, and radiological methods, these experiments were intended to weaken individuals' thought processes while forcing confessions to understand how to destroy and control human minds. Some of these methods even experimented with brain implants that could be controlled remotely. This project was claimed to have been halted way back in 1973 after fears from the Watergate scandal, which caused government-wide panic. It was then when CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MK Ultra files to be destroyed. Since MK Ultra was stopped, other similar drug-related experiment programs have been performed under the code names of Project Bluebird, Project Artichoke, MK Search, and MK Often, and probably many others, right? In 1954, Eisenhower meets with aliens. In February of '54, President Eisenhower went missing for an afternoon. He missed a public dinner and was not seen until the next morning. The day after, the press inquired about his whereabouts from the day before, and the White House press secretary explained that he had visited a dentist over a chipped tooth from eating fried chicken. But there is nothing documented in his dental records that show a repaired chipped tooth. It has... Oh, okay, we're still good, right? Yeah. It has since been alleged from several sources that this was the first of three. Okay, I'm going to have to just kill this. Right. It has since been alleged. Okay. Shut up. Not you, it's this computer. Let me just. Yeah, I'll just turn the damn thing off. I don't need it. Sorry, y'all. God almighty. I'm sure you heard that dinging, though, right? It wasn't just dinging in my head. Okay. I'm gonna get you. Okay, it has since been alleged from. Oh my God, really? Now you're just fucking with me, right? Okay. It has since been alleged from several sources that this was the first. Okay. It has. All right, Scott, 864-315-7892. Text me up. It has since been alleged from several sources that this was the first of 3 secret meetings held between Eisenhower and Nordic appearing aliens at Edwards Air Force Base initially, and then Holloman Air Force Base for others in 1955, while in front of many witnesses. It is believed the aliens wanted the United States to stop their quote-unquote nuclear bomb testing, but Eisenhower couldn't agree. By the 3rd meeting, however, they reached a different agreement. It is said that Eisenhower signed a secret treaty with a gray alien race, and these are the rough details that were alleged to be in the agreement. First, we would not be involved in their affairs, and they would not be involved in ours. Second, they would help us with developing our technology. Third, they would not make a treaty with any other nation. Exclusivity clause, huh? Yeah, when you're dealing with aliens, you always would have put in your exclusivity clause, right? They could abduct humans for various experiments, but had to provide names of all those abducted to the Majestic 12 Committee. They would be allowed to take cattle for use at will. Free burgers, welcome to Earth, right? The public would not be informed about the existence of ETs. Okay, so technology in trade for people and cattle? It's hard to know for sure if this agreement actually took place, but our technology sure has exploded ever since. Cattle mutilations and theft appears to be a pretty big phenomenon as well. Each year, all over the world, thousands of cattle indeed go missing or are found mutilated with their eyes, tongue, heart, liver, genitalia, and anuses removed with perfect precision, often found completely drained of all their blood. And I would add, usually there's no blood spatter or blood spilled anywhere near where they find the cattle corpses, right? You can actually find many accounts of these cattle mutilations linked to UFOs or strange lights in the sky. Although there have been multiple investigations, one extensive investigation was performed by the FBI, who provided a 300-page report basically saying many of these mutilations are the result of natural predation, but others contain unexplainable or inexplicable anomalies. As far as humans going missing, this is even more perplexing to research, with numbers being all over the map. Sources give an average of 500,000 to 900,000 cases reported annually of missing persons, many of which are later found, but it is difficult to determine how many go missing indefinitely, never to be found again. And I would just add as a footnote, also look at things like the missing 411, right? You know, David Paulides, where basically what he found in his research was that the national parks, a lot of people go missing in the national parks under very bizarre circumstances, but the national parks don't keep any sort of registry or data record of the missing people, you know, people that go missing there. So there is definitely something afoot there as well. Just wanted to add that. Okay, so 1954, Operation Midnight Climax. Damn, that sounds like a Skinamax flick, right? Midnight Climax was another CIA program that employed sex workers to lure clients back into certain safe houses where they were covertly given different kinds of illegal drugs, including LSD, and monitored behind hidden one-way glass. This program also undertook extensive research into surveillance technology, sexual blackmail, and operatives also began dosing people unknowingly in restaurants, beaches, and bars. 1956, COINTELPRO starts. COINTELPRO was a counterintelligence program conducted by the FBI, which would aim at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting domestic political organizations through covert and at times illegal projects. Many of the tactics used were smearing individuals or groups, discrediting people through psychological warfare, planting false reports in the media, perjury, intimidation, wrongful imprisonment, withholding evidence, harassment, violence, and assassination. All in all around pretty nice guys, right? 1957, Operation Plum Bob. The United States military starts high-altitude so-called nuclear testing at a Nevada test site with a significant amount of nuclear fallout under the name of Operation Plum Bob. This was followed by Operation Hardtack 1, which was directed by Joint Task Force 7. 35 nuclear tests were allegedly detonated in 1958 at the Pacific Proving Grounds and Marshall Islands. These operations were to test the effects of these bombs underwater and analyze high altitude for combat ballistic missiles. These high altitude tests included rocket boosted launches as well as high altitude balloons. 1958, our favorite people in the world, NASA was founded in 1958. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, was created in October 1st, 1958. This new agency would be responsible for coordinating America's activities in quote-unquote space and reclaim its scientific and technological prowess, which was set back by the Soviet Union and their Sputnik programs, or Sputnik psychological operation, right? While researching things from NASA's website at www.nasa.gov, this author found this opening sentence quite interesting on a page titled "The Birth of NASA," posted on March 28, 2008, written by NASA's chief historian, Stephen J. Dick. Quote, "It may well be argued that NASA has become the world's premier agent for exploration, carrying on in the new ocean of outer space a long tradition of expanding the physical and mental boundaries of humanity." Quite intriguing wording, I must say, but these are the kind of dual meaning statements that you find from them more often than not once awakened to their shenanigans. Why the references of it being argued that they are the premier agency? I thought this was all settled. Carrying on in the quote-unquote new ocean of outer space and the long tradition of expanding mental boundaries of humanity? Critical researchers have pointed out that NASA in Hebrew means to deceive. It is interesting to note that they chose to use a serpent's tongue within their logo and named their missions after Greek small g gods like Apollo, Mercury, and Orion. Perhaps this agency and the Nazis from Operation Paperclip took this program of illusionary magic over from where Jack Parsons left off. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Anthony Kiedis, Red Hot Chili Pepper. 1959 to 1961, Antarctic Treaty System. The Antarctic Treaty was signed into international law in 1959 and is still being completely adhered to by 54 countries to this very day. Possibly one of the most successful international treaties ever written, this treaty establishes Antarctica to be off limits to any citizen or private research firm. This ice wall perimeter is patrolled by all the militaries of the world within this treaty, while no one is allowed to go beyond the 60-degree south latitude point unless receiving written permission through an exhaustive approval process that seems to be designed to ensure guaranteed denial within the process. There are some agencies that bring their pre-approved and authorized staff to certain locations in Antarctica under the premise of ice core sampling and temperature research, but not much else. They occasionally put out press releases, snap a photo, or film a documentary to use as propaganda for use of controlling opinions of the unsuspecting general public. If you want to visit this highly protected area, however, you can purchase very expensive tickets for a guided tour if you pass a background check. You will then get to visit a very small, specific area with some flags and a pole in the snow claiming to be the ceremonial South Pole, but don't bring a compass, they're not allowed. You will then board your plane or cruise ship and head back. These trips are very costly and out of reach for most of us, and hardly justifiable for the immense cost. 1962, Operation Fishbowl. This was the second round of high-altitude nuclear missile tests taking place under a larger project umbrella called Operation Dominic in 1962. This Operation Fishbowl had an interesting name, coupled with interesting test names called Bluegill, Starfish, and Kingfish. These tests were launched from the remote Johnston Island in the Pacific Ocean, sending nuclear missiles allegedly high into the atmosphere and detonating them. Researcher Rob Skiba pointed out in a presentation that Dominic in Latin means of the Lord, and adding the dual project name together could literally take the meaning, quote, Operation Fishbowl of the Law, in attempting to perform testing to find the height of the firmament. The most interesting component beyond this, to this author, is that they launched, quote unquote, Thor missiles to carry these warheads, allegedly. In German and Norse mythology, Thor is a hammer-wielding demigod with a small g, associated with thunder and lightning, and a god with a small g of the air. Could these fish names be code for the water above the firmament, and the Thor missile be a symbolic hammer to smash the firmament? 1962, Kennedy's inspirational speech. On September 12, 1962, President John F. Kennedy delivered an inspiring speech declaring, quote, "We choose to go to the moon," by laying out the end goal of accomplishment by the end of the decade. This was an aggressive goal with only 7 years to achieve, but this speech would go down as one of the defining moments of his short presidency. 1963, so a year after that, or about a year after that, John F. Kennedy assassinated. On November 22nd, 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated while riding in the presidential motorcade through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. This event has since been surrounded in controversy, conspiracy theory, and severely flawed investigation efforts that will still not allow the release of classified files regarding the event, even 55 plus years later. Some believe that there is substantial evidence that JFK was going to blow the whistle on the CIA for corruption and hiding the alien and UFO conspiracy. It's alleged that he was bound and determined to get full access to UFO intelligence as president and take back control of the information and the rogue Majestic 12 group. 10 days before his death, he demanded in writing that the CIA reveal its secret UFO files, but he never lived to see them. And I would add, he was also all about getting rid of the Fed and the IRS as well, the non-federal, non-reserve banks. So that may have had something to do with it as well, but we'll never know. If he even was really assassinated, you can't necessarily believe everything you see on TV. And in the 60s or whatever, we certainly did have the capability of squibs, right? So like remote detonated little blood bombs, okay? Just saying, anything's possible. Okay, so 1966, Project MK Often, which I've never heard of this one. This covert project was in conjunction with the CIA and the US Department of Defense with the goal to, quote, test the behavioral and toxicological effects of certain drugs on animals and humans. But allegations were made later that this program was actually led by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, known as the Black Sorcerer, to also explore the world of black magic by harnessing the forces of darkness through the use of astrologists, clairvoyants, mediums, physics or psychics, I'm not sure, demonologists. It's spelled as physics, but the context says psychics, demonologists, palm readers, witches, warlocks, and Satanists, among other occult groups. What would a program like this have to do with national security, huh? And why are they so interested in harnessing the forces of darkness? 1967, Operation Popeye. Operation Popeye was a highly classified chemical weather modification program starting in '67, mainly used in the Southeast Asia during Vietnam War. During the Vietnam War, this program would utilize cloud seeding operations to extend the monsoon season and reproduce rain at will. The 54th Weather Reconnaissance Squadron carried out the operation through aircrafts based from Guam while using the slogan, "Make mud, not war." The squadron's objectives were to cause landslides along roadways, soften road surfaces, wash out river crossings, and extend the saturation of soil conditions. Many Americans believe that weather modification doesn't even exist and scoff at the idea of their government tampering with the weather, but this is very old news. The first weather modification patent for rainmaking was granted in August of 1913 as United States Patent Number 1103490. At that time, this form of rainmaking was performed using weather balloons. Since that time, there have been over 100 additional patents issued to the US government and their contractors for weather modification technology, methods, and devices. It is alleged that the technology currently exists to either start or extinguish any old storm at will, and they will own the weather before 2025 completely. If this is hard for you to believe, just take a look up in the sky and watch what the planes are doing with these chemtrails. These are much more than just contrails from normal flight patterns. Chemtrails, maybe just water vapors, just saying. 1969, the moon landing hoax. Being memorialized as the most important human achievement ever, and a symbol of American conquest, it is believed that on July 20th, 1969, the United States, through NASA, landed on the moon with the Apollo 11 mission and walked on the moon for the first time ever. Although most people in the early 1900s did not believe in a globe Earth, this event would forever change cosmology by cementing in everyone's minds worldwide the ability to capture images of Earth by photos alleged to have been taken from the moon. What do you think? Could this be the crowning achievement of human triumph, or the biggest hoax performed on the American and world public? Quote from William Casey, CIA director in 1981, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." We're going to stop at this event because there are too many events to cover completely. Imagine the secret programs that may have existed that we don't have any access to finding out about. Does the ancient and modern roots of deception help shed some light on answering these questions? Why would they lie? Would my government lie to me? Let's see. Heard about this 6 or 7 years ago. The nefarious stuff they've done right under the public's nose is truly mind-boggling, sadistic, and evil. Indeed. If you still are not quite sure why they would lie, for this I'm going to look at George Orwell and let him allude to the answer on this one. Quote, "He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past." George Orwell. Basically, he's saying they got us by the balls, ain't they? It's about controlling the past and controlling the future. But before we finish with conclusions for the future, we should take a look at the roots of our traditions that's become the basis of our holidays, shall we? New Year's Day. April Fools. Until the 1500s, April 1st was New Year's Day per the Julian calendar, until the Western world adopted to the Gregorian calendar, which moved New Year's Day from April 1st all the way to January 1st. This would have actually made much more sense because everything starts growing again with the arrival of springtime, marking the new year and the new season coming forth, as opposed to the middle of the cold and dark winter where everything's dead. It is unknown how pranks started on this day of April 1st, but it might not be a big stretch to think the joke is on us. It really is New Year's Day. Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is celebrated by many couples on February 14th. This holiday originates from the ancient Roman festival Lupercalia, which was celebrated from February 13th to 15th every year. This festival would avert evil spirits and promote fertility through a number of rites, including the priests sacrificing a male goat and a dog on an altar, followed by an offering of meal cakes prepared by Vestal virgins, and lastly, a dinner feast of the sacrifice. After the feast, the young adult males would cover themselves with the sacrificial blood and take a flayed portion of the sacrificed animal skin and wrap them around their reproductive organs, making a thong called a februa, and run around the city nearly naked, swinging animal skins at women they encountered. This was believed to aid the pregnant in delivery and improve the fertility of the barren. Following the city run, men would draw a, quote, love note from a box with a woman's name in it, making her subservient to him for the next year. This was later adopted and changed to St. Valentine's Day and celebrated on February 14th, honoring saints named Valentinus with a feast, and later turned into Valentine's Day, becoming the celebration of romance and love that we have today. It's also said that Cupid is a symbol derived from Nimrod, the mighty hunter with a bow and arrow. The red color of the holiday symbolizes the blood with which they were covered, and the heart shape represents the female reproductive organ. Easter Sunday is celebrated every year by many faithful people on each continent in observance of Resurrection Day by commemorating the resurrection of Yeshua ben Yosef. This actual day is not chosen based on a specific resurrection date that is observed, but based on the annual cycle of the March equinox, sun cycle, and full moon combined that dictates which Sunday each spring this day is observed. The resurrection of Yeshua occurred almost 2,000 years ago during the time of the Jewish Passover, which was known as Pesach in Hebrew, or Passover. In the years following the resurrection as initially observed, the resurrection was celebrated with a traditional Passover. Over time, as the gospel spread to non-Jewish nations unfamiliar with Passover, pagan traditions and rites began to be assimilated into this day as well. Being that so many pagan components were added to this resurrection observance, the early American Puritans actually dismissed this tradition as a whole, and it wasn't until after the Civil War that this holiday started gaining traction in America. But what are these pagan rites and where did they come from? The origins of Easter seem to go all the way back to shortly after Noah's flood. When Nimrod died, his wife Semiramis reinvented him as the sun god, who would later become known as Baal. Semiramis then conceived an illegitimate son named Tammuz. Semiramis convinced all her followers that Tammuz was the rebirth of Nimrod and that he was supernaturally conceived through the rays of the sun, Nimrod thus becoming the new savior, according to them. People worshipped Tammuz for being the reborn Nimrod and worshipped Semiramis as the goddess of fertility. Easter originates from a springtime ritual instilled by Semiramis after the death of Tammuz, who is said to have been killed by a wild boar, not like the mighty hunter Nimrod, it appears. Through a legend of Tammuz being resurrected, symbolically through the power of Semiramis's tears that sprouted new vegetation which appeared in the spring. Thus, the spring solstice festival was born. Semiramis claimed that Tammuz would be resurrected to live and rule again someday. This tradition would spread into many different forms throughout many cultures and tongues because that was at the time when all the languages were confounded at the end of Babel, creating many new languages, or like Creoles, right? This is why you can find a mirror of this story throughout many cultures with different names. The stories are all similar with some slight variations. The goddess of spring, or the small g goddess of fertility, is Semiramis, but also known as the Queen of Heaven, the Queen of Babylon, Astarte, or Ishtar, Easter, Ashtoreth, Sibyl, Demeter, Ceres, Diana, Inanna, Aphrodite, Athena, Venus, Freya, Eostre, Ostera, and Isis, for starters. The small g god that was worshipped by most societies following the dispersion of Babel, known as the mighty hunter, god of storms, god of fertility, and small g god of the underworld, that was Nimrod, who seems to be also known as Baal, Saturn, Gilgamesh, Tammuz, Vulcan, Kronos, Moloch, Marduk, Attis, Adonis, Mithras, Dionysus, Osiris, and Apollo, among many others. Another variation or parallel of this story is the Egyptian version regarding Osiris, who married Isis and angered his brother Set, who then killed Osiris and cut up his body into many little pieces and scattered that throughout Egypt. Later, Isis would find all the pieces of Osiris's body and reassemble them. The story alleges, however, that she found all the parts of his body except one, the reproductive part. She was able to somehow then revive Osiris just long enough to become pregnant, even though he lacked a method to accomplish this, and she had a son named Horus. Being that Osiris didn't have male anatomy anymore, he couldn't rule. He could father a child, but he couldn't rule. So he was given the underworld to rule until he can fully be reassembled and resurrected again one day. Semiramis, or Ishtar, or Ashtaroth, would be forever celebrated as the goddess of sex and fertility by offering sacred dyed eggs and arranging special events around them, like hiding them and seeking them out. The bunny rabbit and nests stem from Egyptian tradition due to the potent fertility held by the rabbit's rapid reproduction, gaining a cherished role as a legendary producer of Easter eggs for children. Nimrod, or Osiris, or Baal would be memorialized through the fertility symbol of the obelisk, which represents the missing private part needed for Osiris to resurrect from the underworld. This symbol has become a powerful occult talisman used to draw satanic power in rituals. Quote from Judges 2 and 13, "So they forsook the Lord and served Baal and the Ashtaroth." Halloween, or All Hallows Eve. This is a holiday celebrated every year on October 31st, initially started by an ancient Celtic religion as their most important and sinister festival of the year, called Samhain. They believed that the veil between the physical world and the spirit realm was thinnest on this day. To commemorate the Samhain event, Druids built huge sacred bonfires where the people gathered to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. The souls of those who had died were believed to return to visit from the underworld this night, and the people would wear masks and other disguises to avoid being recognized by the ghost thought to be present. It was in these days that beings such as witches, hobgoblins, fairies, and demons came to be associated with the day of Halloween. People would leave food and offerings to wandering spirits to appease them, and began to use the costumes of spirits to go from door to door to collect these offerings. Some researchers believe that the Druids would actually sacrifice a woman after raping her and burn the body in a giant fire in order to incinerate the bones. This could be the origination of the bonfire or bonfire. Halloween is a sacred holiday among the Wiccans, witches, warlocks, and Satanists, while performing rituals in many forms through the harnessing of the dark powers behind this night. Anton LaVey, the author of the Satanic Bible and the founder of Mickey Mouse's Church of Satan, just Church of Satan, had this to say about the holiday. I'm glad that Christian parents let their children worship the devil at least one night out of the year. Welcome to Halloween, end quote. Anton LaVey has also said that the two most important satanic holidays are your birthday and Halloween. Christmas Day. The date of Yeshua, or Jesus' birth, is celebrated around the world every year on December 25th. Some believe this date to be his actual birthday, while others admit that it is not, yet believe it's just a date that was chosen arbitrarily to be celebrated. But it may be interesting to note that numerous historians believe that the time of year that became the Christmas season was actually a period when pagan festivities were celebrated. The most common answer is that it was the Emperor Constantine who decided on December 25th to, quote unquote, Christianize a pagan holiday. Others believe this day was dedicated to the Roman cult of the sun god, Sol Invicus, during his annual festival. The Encyclopedia Americana states, quote, the reason for establishing December 25 as Christmas is somewhat obscure, but it is usually held that the day was chosen to correspond to pagan festivals, which took place around the time of the winter solstice, when the days began to lengthen to celebrate the quote-unquote rebirth of the sun, end quote. But could this date actually be more nefarious than previously understood? In addition to the so-called rebirth of the sun celebration, there is an historical character that you may remember with a name meaning to rebel, who was known as the first post-flood dictator named Nimrod. It is alleged that he was born on the winter solstice, and many sources believe Nimrod's birthday was on December 25th. When Nimrod's son Tammuz was killed by the wild boar, Semiramis, or Ishtar, told her followers that his blood fell on an evergreen tree stump, and overnight the evergreen tree grew to full size. This made the evergreen tree sacred by the blood of Tammuz. So we're going to quote Jeremiah. Thus says the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them, for the customs of the people are vain. For one cuts a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers that it move not. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. Jeremiah 10:2-4. Yeshua, Jesus, was actually born September 11th in 3 BC on a holy feast called Yom Teruah, or Day of Trumpets. A book entitled The Star That Astonished the World by Dr. Ernest L. Martin shows that the star's alignment, which occurred in that year when Yeshua was born in Bethlehem, was given in an excerpt from Revelation 12. Quote, Revelation 12, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. And then Revelation 12:5, and she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. So, on no other day except on September 11th in 3 BC do we see this star alignment taking place. On this day only, and not ever again since, has this constellation been seen. It was Virgo, the Virgin, and she had 12 stars around her head for the 12 tribes of Israel, and the moon was under her feet. The sun was mid-body, so she was being, quote, clothed with the sun, while she was giving birth to the Lion of the tribe of Judah. This happened at no other time in history except on this date, which became a holy day in which Yahweh, or Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, commanded Israel to, quote, keep forever. And this day is called Yom Teruah, or the Day of Shouting, or Memorial of Blowing Trumpets, because God was announcing the arrival of his son into the world with trumpets and shouting. If it is so clear that September 11th is actually Yeshua's birthday, why has this been kept from us, and why do we celebrate the birth date of Nimrod by utilizing other pagan traditions that we were warned not to do back in Jeremiah 10? Have we been tricked repeatedly about everything that we've been taught? The enemy has been here long before us, and his power and intelligence has been highly underestimated. This author's final conclusion on this reason might be shocking, but we will conclude this aspect of the puzzle later on when cosmology meets eschatology, where these things will all come together. Conclusions. First off, this author wants to preface this by clarifying that he is not a prophet in any way, shape, or form, and he's not speaking from any position other than his opinion of hypothesis based on what he's extracted throughout the years regarding his studies of what seems to be happening at the underpinnings and where he thinks this is going. Secondly, he realizes that most of these things have been related to the United States, and he wants to clarify that there is no government free from corruption. And it certainly appears that all governments have been misleading their very citizens. But when looking at everything accomplished, it does seem like there are people within the US government or behind it that are leading this charge. Earlier in the book, we asked the question, could this be a component of the spiritual deception that we were warned about in the end times? So let's read the part referring to this in 2 Thessalonians 2:10-15. then that lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will slay with the breath of his mouth and bring to an end by the appearance of his coming. That is, the one whose coming is in accord with the activity of Shaitan, with all powers and signs and false wonders, and with all the deception of wickedness for those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth so as to be saved. For this reason, big G, God, will send up upon them a deluding influence so that they will believe what is false, in order that they all may be judged who did not believe the truth, but took pleasure in wickedness rather. But we should always give thanks to the Most High for you, brethren beloved by the Lord, because God has chosen you from the beginning for salvation through sanctification by the Spirit and faith in the truth. It was for this that he called you through our gospel, that you may gain the glory of our Lord Jesus Christ. So then, brothers, stand firm and hold to the traditions which you were taught, whether by word of mouth or by letter from us. Again, that was 2 Thessalonians 2. It is this author's conclusion that the evolution/heliocentric globe/outer space illusion is not for any single reason, but for several. It is an all-round perfect deception rooted by Satan and his minions to trick mankind by leading them right into an end-age, dark spiritual illusion on an enormous scale of biblical proportions. This is all being set up for the final beast system/tribulation period at the end of the age, when the so-called lawless one is revealed and claims to be the reincarnated small g God. We'll explain the scenarios that he can logically reason, and then try to explain how it could relate to the final components leading into this final period of the deception. 1, to discredit Yah, the God of the Bible, and his word as much as possible, with the goal of diminishing its significance and accuracy in the minds of the people. Teach the young people that scientists are the leading authority on all things. Scientism, like our origins through a cosmic Big Bang. Astronauts are also used as proselytizers for science, which is so-called proving that the Bible got everything cosmologically regarding the creation of the universe wrong. This is more complex in nature, but the final leg of this and total goal is to ultimately discredit the story of Yeshua as being the one true Savior and Messiah of humanity. 2, teaching evolution from a young age implants the notion of humans constantly improving or evolving, meaning the process is not yet complete and each generation is getting better and smarter. Clearly, this subconsciously brings into question and diminishes beliefs of parents and grandparents because they are not quite as evolved, tolerant, or electronically advanced as the younger, more enlightened generations. This boosts their pride in themselves, and introducing the gay, transgender, and gender fluid confusion becomes a form of positive change or advancement in humanity. Sure it does. This also leads to a selfish and godless society over time by encouraging a do what you want whenever you want culture, or do as thou wilt. Per Crowley, which is the goal of Satanism, by the way, to worship yourself and just do whatever the hell you want. 3, teaching the heliocentric globe model from a young age can accomplish 2 additional things. A, confusion in the mind of the child on their insignificant place in this world and their purpose in life. B, distract them by focusing their minds on the possibility of a final frontier out in space and the fantasy of a new age exploration in outer space, while setting the stage for the possibility of encountering other life forms that can help us along our path with our problems. 4, Holidays have been disguised to prepare the world to worship the beast, as they have all been designed to appear partially Christianized and rooted from things that have nothing to do with what we intend to observe as Christians. This will allow many to question their beliefs who do not know the truth and join the beast system while accepting the Antichrist with open arms. This author isn't suggesting that everyone should not partake in holidays, but rather shining a flashlight on the dark roots of their origins for further personal consideration. Most of the world's religions at the top level will likely follow suit in support of the Antichrist and merge into one new religion that will take humanity to the, quote, next level. Many will denounce their faith, their religion, or their religious leaders, through this process, which will lead to a great falling away. On the opposite side, however, many with eyes to see will turn to Yahweh, since the Bible prophecy is being fulfilled day after day before our very eyes. They'll find out that everything as outlined in the Bible is true. 5, this may be hard to believe, but there will likely be some type of an alien invasion sometime in the future. These will not be aliens as we've been led to think of them, being from outer space, but part of the Satan seed program, which lives at the ends of the earth and deep within the underground realms. It's crucial to them that everyone must believe that they came from another planet for several reasons. If they're from outer space, this gives them a narrative of being far superior to us and negates any truth of them being fallen angels, demonic entities of some kind, or anything representing what they actually are. Everything will have to be opposite of the biblical truth to pull off this delusion. Creating a false globe Earth makes everyone look to outer space for other life, or maybe look to outer space just to find intelligent life, while completely ignoring there could be anything coming from underground or the Arctic or Antarctic regions. This will be easy to pull off because the public has totally been conditioned to expect this possibility, and upon arrival, these demonic entities will likely have answers to age-old mysteries and make the claim that they created us on this planet millions of years ago, or tie into upholding the Darwinian theory in some regard. Since the announcement of the Space Force, this author has speculated that this could be the arm that finally claims UFOs exist and lay the groundwork for their arrival. 6, there must be a system in place in order to implement and uphold the beast system economy that will be incorporated to prevent/allow the ability to buy and sell. This direction is well on its way, with everything moving to electronic payments and a totally cashless society. There may be a precursor or test systems in place before this through social media that will get people used to the transition, similar to what China is doing with social credit scoring in preparation of this final system. If you're not familiar, this Chinese social credit system scores you, the individual, based on things that you say, things that you do, things you're connected to, and it gives you a public scoring that penalizes you if your score doesn't meet the pre-required guidelines. They can lock you out of parts of society just for doing something they don't like, or for your score falling below the required rating. I believe this final beast system will have everything it needs to be required with the completion of implementation of the new 5G system, just around the corner as this was written a few years ago. All across the world, they're putting up this 5G system as fast as possible under the reason that we need faster internet speed. But this system will be able to track everyone wherever they are and to know their daily routines, and may even have the ability to be weaponized due to the intense frequencies that this grid will be emitting. Whistleblowers have been sounding the alarm on potential hazards of the 5G system on many spectrums and believe the health aspects of the system could be detrimental in light of the high, untested frequencies needed to run the 5G systems. So don't be surprised if this system is authored by Google or some new company that pops and is bought out and implemented by Google. Quite possibly, this could be a combined effort on the tech giants and the powerful social media companies who may compete to implement the most powerful system ever devised. 7, climate change will be the next hoax that will be thrust upon the people who will be led to believe it's something actually taking place and also it's caused by us. Many people believe this is being inflicted intentionally through the planes overhead, creating chemtrails, potentially containing barium and aluminum and others that are clouding our skies on a very frequent basis. If you happen to be a dot connector, it won't take you long to see the periodic symbol for these two chemical elements is for Ba, barium, and Al for aluminum, or when combined, Baal. A climate problem must be created in the first place, only for them to swoop in with some grand solution that will likely remove the remainder of Americans' last viable freedoms and take control of most everything else, which hasn't yet been taken away as a result of the Patriot Act and the Health Care Act, and now the coronavirus with Lyme Act, right? 8. The other two things that they are chipping away at right now are the First and Second Amendments, which will be the only other components needed to remove the remaining rights of we the people. Could there be secret operations aiding this fight through heinous shootings that don't make any sense, which keep happening with seemingly increased frequency? As this all continues, at some point, public opinion will rally behind taking away everyone's firearms with the goal of keeping everyone safe, which will definitely have the exact opposite effect, but it will then be much too late for its citizens to do anything about it. If you're on the fence of this issue, realize the constitutional framers incorporated the First and Second Amendments to protect all the other amendments. They wanted citizens to bear arms as a right that cannot be infringed. It was not designed to protect hunting, but for protection against a tyrannical government specifically, in order to keep a potentially tyrannical government in check. 9. As an alternative possibility to the alien invasion mentioned earlier, the initial invasion could be a first phase only, disguised as a ruse designed to allow Greys to come in and cause a lot of trouble, followed by some other race that may then fly in and save us from the first ones, which would be a plan from the get designed to specifically trick us into thinking that the new second wave of beings are good guys and have all the right answers and solutions to our problems. These would then be the ones to finally usher in the one world government solution, if not yet already in place, and a new world religion that will replace all others and become the Antichrist beast system. It is likely that they may have technology to enable us to complete our evolution cycle, to become our own small g gods, while also prolonging our lives through some type of DNA upgrade. This could be some kind of dual purpose implant that would be representative of the mark of the beast in the Bible. This implant would hold data, which would eliminate the need to carry identification, handle user transactions, and may potentially alter you from a person into something else entirely. This is why people may develop sores as a result and cannot be saved after taking this mark, because it may alter their DNA, possibly turning them into some sort of hybrid or kind of modern day Nephilim or chimera. People who take the mark will probably be required to swear an allegiance to the beast, worship and deny Christ, worship the beast and deny Christ in order to get this very tempting upgrade. 10, one of the components needed to accomplish this aggressive plan is to cripple the world's superpower, the United States, and create such bad times that people of the world will be ready to accept solutions that they normally would not. Expect a big and very deep worldwide recession sometime during the 2020s. This recession may make the crash of 2008 look desirable by comparison, and will provide the ability to sign even more new bills into law to, quote unquote, solve the problem. People with ill intent have been funding the demise of the United States for quite some time through an effort to create racial and social divides in order to be able to step in and fix all these problems. Their motto seems to be, never let a good crisis go to waste. All of these pieces are needed to complete the building of their pyramid and turn complete power over to the false Christ or to the beast, who will attain power around or after this time. I would just submit, could it be possible that we're already living in some form of the beast system for our entire lives and for at least several generations? And I'm not disagreeing with what the author's saying here. I just think that we're already in it. We need to get out of it and not be so much worried about how they're going to trick us, right? Okay, so quoting Revelation 13 and 16, and he, the false Christ, causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, and the free men and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand or in their forehead, and he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the ones who have the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Revelation 14:9. Then another angel, a third one, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in full strength in the cup of his anger. And he will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of his holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And finally, Revelation 16:12. So the first angel went and poured out the bowl onto the earth, and it became a loathsome and malignant sore on the people who had the mark of the beast and who worshipped his image. Revelation 16:2, right? So if some of what this author laid out sounds crazy, consider the amount of alien, superhero, and hybrid-based movies that have been released by Hollywood over the last decade or two. Many of these promote the idea of other planets and usually have something to do with Armageddon or the end of the world in some way. There are people who have been laying the groundwork through conditioning for these fallen angelic beings and hybrids to show up and take over in order to kickstart the beast system that they believe will enable them to live like little g, have war with the Most High Creator. They actually think they can win, but that is what the father of lies has led them to believe. The roots of deception have been in place for thousands of years, all leading up to what has been outlined through prophecy in the Bible. This has been a dark spiritual deception all along and will come to an end as outlined. Hey, would you shut that curtain, please? Like, it's right in my eyes. Thank you. And will come to an end as outlined. This is one big battle of the human mind and belief system to steal away the soul from the only one who can reconcile them, the Most High. He says, Jesus, I'm sorry. I will end this chapter with a quote from a Vatican representative that has admitted they will be accepting this new gospel, which is obviously the gospel of the Antichrist. So, quoting Father Giuseppe, Tanzella Nitti, Vatican astronomer, eminent theologian, and full professor of fundamental theology at the Pontificia Università della Santo Croce in Rome, connected with Opus Dei, from an interview with Dr. Thomas Horn on Coast to Coast Radio back in 2013. Quote, Christians will not immediately need to renounce their faith in God simply on the basis of the reception of this new, unexpected information of a religious character from extraterrestrial civilizations. However, once the religious content originating from outside the earth has been verified, they will have to conduct a rereading of the gospel, inclusive of this new data, end quote. End of chapter 14. So, boy, that was a long one. It was an hour and a half yesterday and an hour today. So, thanks so much, guys, for hanging in for the end of section 14 of Confusion in the Cosmos. We are getting close to the end of this. Let's see. 295 here. So, yeah, we're getting right down to the bottom of it. That's what we got left. So I'll definitely get this done ASAP and get it behind me. It's a great book. I love it. And I'll just be glad to get it behind me because it's a lot of reading. But thanks so much for watching. Love you guys. If you want to help support the channel, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, and Patreon. Very big thanks to our channel supporters and Patreons. Links will be below, but the keyword on all those is my YouTube name, TheMorgile. So love you guys. Thanks so much. More to come very soon, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
I'm glad, because she's got to go.